Wow.
Okay, now then, we got what happens when a holding clutch is applied. This is sort of a general knowledge post-test for automatic transmissions, and we're going to ask these few little questions here. So if we've got a holding clutch that's applied, what happens then? What happens when a holding clutch is applied? A gear ratio is reduced, planetary gears move freely, gear set elements held, and power or flow is directed, or the fluid pressure in the valve body is reduced. That's a C, isn't it? That's going to be a C. Gear set element is held, and power flow is redirected.
Yeah. You got it right.
What do the hydraulic clutches and bands do? Do they hold and drive planetary gear sets? Do they produce various output ranges of torque and speed, or do they provide fluid, reservoir, and hydraulic passages?
You're right.
That's an A, isn't it? All right. So your transmission fluid pump is usually driven by what? What drives the transmission fluid pump? Is it the torque converter hub, the transmission input shaft, the engine output shaft, or the torque converter hub or pump input shaft?
It's D, isn't it?
Actually, it's going to be D because some of them have got an input shaft that drives the pump that goes all the way through the transmission. Some of the transactions a little bitty. There's a little bitty shaft on these ATX transmissions they used to have in them Escorts and stuff, and it would go all the way through there. And the pump was on the back. You could change the pump on some automatic transmissions without even pulling the transmission out.
You for real?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, this sounds crazy. There used to be a little Datsun V210, I think it was.
A what?
A Datsun V210, and you could change the clutch without pulling the engine or anything.
How?
It was just the way they had it built. It's hard to describe, but I mean, look at my dad changed the clutch in one of those one time. It's a little cover you take off there, and you just pull it. It's unusual, but okay. So what happens when fluid passes through a reduced opening? Pressure increases on which side of the opening?
The one where it goes through.
Hey man, if you cover up the end of the garden hose with your thumb, the hose gets tight, don't it? Pressure increases, right? Think about it that way. On these Power Stroke diesel engines, they have this variable geometry turbocharger. When those vanes change, what the vanes do is they cause a slight restriction upstream there, but they also make the exhaust gas that's going between those vanes go faster, and it's going to drive that little turbine wheel faster. And so it acts like a small turbocharger when it needs a small turbocharger, and acts like a big one when it really needs a lot. So there you go.
I want one of them.
Yeah. The exact same, the same one. It's basically the same turbocharger on Duramax and Power Stroke, except the Duramax one's got stainless steel vanes.
So the Duramax is better.
And the Duramax has also got they use a feedback sensor on there so they can tell where they are. And but anyway, in a 1-to-1 gear ratio, the drive gear rotates what? Slower than the gear it drives, the same speed as the gear it drives, or faster than the gear it drives?
Same speed.
All right. Got that? Everybody got that? Why does transmission fluid transfer movement? It maintains constant viscosity over a wide temperature range. It cannot be compressed. It resists chemical breakdown under extreme conditions, or it is primarily a mineral oil. Actually, it's B. It cannot be compressed. B is the right answer on that. It cannot be compressed. What is the role of the hydraulic valve? In a transmission? Does it apply and release the fluid coupling? Does it modify engine torque and speed? Does it direct fluid flow or control pressure? Or does it hold planetary gear set elements?
I think C.
That's going to be C. It directs fluid flow or control pressure.
All right, man.
Now, what have I told y'all before? Where's the heat? Where's the heat created? In the torque converter. The torque converter here in the fluid is making the heat. Got to get you guys saturated with transmission fluid in here. Everybody has to take a bath from head to toe in transmission fluid before you leave. And then whenever it's sometimes for power steering day, you got to take a bath in power steering fluid. And when it's time for brakes, you got to take a bath in brake fluid.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
If it's manual transmission day, then you got to take a bath in 50-watt motor oil.
I'm not doing that.
Now, so there's some manual transmissions come for automatic transmissions.
Hey, look,
We can settle that on
I read my Subaru. The transmission busted and swung the gear all up through the where the shifter goes through, and it
Yeah. Was
it
that good?
burned. Yeah, I had burns on my face everywhere. It was bad.
That's when you was racing or something?
It's not wrong.
Huh? Running from the police, well.
Yeah, how fun is it?
That's even
Hey,
better.
that's fun. I ain't him out running. Until I wrecked.
Yeah.
I ain't him out running big enough.
Yeah, well, that's
It took
something,
you 10 minutes to catch up to me.
that's something that you and Mr. Monroe have in
No, I
common.
won't ever do it again. I'm
I got a
gonna
roll cage in that thing, boy.
Man, I should have had better tires on it.
This guy that I worked with was.
Hey, look, Miss Richard, the funny thing is, I hit a fire hydrant and he hit a fire hydrant.
Those fire hydrants are city property, so they hold out their hand and stop it.
Yeah, that thing costs like $5,000.
Mine didn't. I didn't have to pay for mine.
Yeah. This guy that I worked with that used to run from the cops some back in the 70s whenever they didn't do much to you for it, said that don't ever go down a dirt road. If you're running from the cops, that dust is real easy to fall.
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody thinks all is hit a dirt road.
I had never run from one. What I always do is I hit the side of the road as soon as I see the light.
Yeah, me too now.
When I was a teenager, I'd hit the side of the road and I'd act like I was real dumb or scared or something. They wouldn't hardly ever give me a ticket.
I did too, but that don't work with me.
Yeah, that's because you look like a smart aleck. Yeah. All right. So, all right. And let me see. What's the output from a 1 to 4 gear ratio call?
Overdrive.
Yeah, that's going to be an overdrive there. 1 to 4. 1 to 4. So if you got one turning here and you got 4 turning over there. That's heavy duty. Clutches and bands are applied and released by what?
My device.
Clutches and bands are released by planetary gear set, applied devices, driving devices, or hydraulic valve bodies.
Maybe the valve bike.
I'm going with B.
What I put on ours?
Clutches and bands.
Applied devices. Yeah.
They're not released. Well,
What do you think?
it's B.
Applied and released. What do you think?
Well,
Is the valve body send the fluid? Well, we're wanting to know what directly applies and releases them, right? So I'd say B. If you put B, you're okay.
applied devices.
I got that right.
You got it wrong.
What did he put? Did he put valve body?
It was driving devices. Dang, I was going to put B.
Driving devices.
Driving devices. Yeah.
I don't feel that bad.
What kind of Kool-Aid do you drink over there? All right.
I thought mine was
What?
green. Come on, Greg.
No, that was be some heavy wind out there. Hold the.
Seriously?
No, it ain't bad out there. I've actually been in this shop and looked out the window when they have real heavy tornado weather. It's called green air.
Green.
You ever seen green air?
Are you serious?
If you're ever in a tornado or real close to one, you will see green air.
I've been close to
It's the weirdest thing you've ever seen.
I've been too close.
I've looked between them buildings out there and seen air that was actually green. I'm not talking about because there's grass and stuff.
Why, though?
I don't know. But I mean, I have no clue. I don't have no idea why it's green air. But when the high school blew away over in Enterprise and it ripped the top off the high school, hey, it said in the newspaper they looked up and the sky was green.
Yeah, after they demolished my house, then went to the hospital.
Did you see that?
I just remember black.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I knew. I knew what he did.
Right.
The tornado hit his house. He said, "Go to the high school. Get away from me."
No. I was running and ducking for it.
So it destroyed your house before it went to the high school. Huh? Did you see green air?
I ain't seen nothing but black. It's black outside.
Yeah. It don't take long for it to tear a house up either. 20 seconds and it's
Dogs
gone.
and everything.
All right.
What'd you do?
Ducking ringing.
Was it just you?
My brother, the one that came to the registration, his old lady.
Yeah. Good grief. All right. That was in
What
2007.
Puerto Rico.
That's bad news. All right. What do driving devices do? Transfer power from one component to another. That's a good point. Yep.
I don't know what number we're on, so I don't know if you have
Yeah.
10.
I was going to say, when that door opened a while ago, it made me think of this guy. Back in 1947, and you can look this up on the internet, in Texas City, Texas, there was a freighter down there that was loaded with fertilizer. Ammonium nitrate fertilizer. And you know what that means. Boom! Explosive. And it's explosive. And somebody down in the hold of that ship smoked a cigarette, apparently. And when that thing blew up,
Atomic bomb.
you could hear that thing 100 miles away. I mean, it was like from here to Panama City, it was like boom. You could hear the noise. And Johnny Ford is a guy that I knew that was the
That's why I
executive
started
vice
doing
president. He was the vice president of the company I worked for, and he said that he was in the high school basement down there when that happened, and he didn't know until later what was going on. and him and his buddy were practicing, and they were practicing his speech for the student body thing, you know what I'm saying? Just talking, he was actually, his buddy's sitting there and he's doing his speech, you know. There was nobody else around. And he heard a noise sound like somebody rolling a drum, like a janitor rolling a 55-gallon drum down the hall. Like that. And he was in Beaumont, Texas, which is a long way from Texas City, or it might have been in Houston, but anyway, he said whenever it sounded like the janitor got to that door went, he says, golly, he said, you talking about spooked. You know, there was a ghost out there or something. Yeah. But it was a concussion from that explosion. It went up there, went in that building, went down the hall, and it had enough force to open and close that door. Huh. And he was about 100 miles away from where it happened. As I remember, he may have been. I think he was in Houston, but anyway. But you can look at it, like I say, look it up on the internet. Texas City, Texas, brain ship or explosion where they had that fertilizer in the truck. It's bad. Worst peacetime marine disaster ever. Killed a lot of people. Which of these is a symptom of a faulty transmission fluid pump? Well, how about no engagement in any gear?
Why?
Because if you ain't got pressure, you ain't going to engage. See what I'm saying? If the fluid pump ain't pumping pressure, you ain't got nothing that's going to apply, it ain't going nowhere. If you got a transmission that won't move, you're going to have no fluid pressure, or you're going to have typically torque converter problems, usually. Now, why you don't have fluid pressure is something that is a jury's trial. Okay, let's do this. What is a symptom of a worn friction discs and a holding clutch? Slipping in a control gear is a good answer. Slipping in a control gear. What happens inside the torque converter at higher speeds?
They're at the same speed, ain't it?
Very good, Brandon. Good answer, good answer. The turbine and impeller spin at similar speeds. Everything, you'll see the overrunning clutch. The overrunning clutch inside the stator just kind of keep going there. And, okay. Let's see, the torque converter is best described as what?
An advanced valve that regulates and directs fluid flow.
Ouch.
Nope, a fluid coupling that transmits power.
A fluid coupling that transmits power flow from the engine.
I got it right now.
How would you describe the torque and speed produced by a 1-to-4 gear ratio? Is it high speed, low torque?
Yes.
Yeah, baby. Think about your 10-speed bicycle. When you're out here to where you got a little gear in the a big gear in the front and a little gear in the back. That's hard to pedal, but boy, can you ever get some speed? You know what I mean? That's what when I was thinking about gears and stuff, I'd always think about the bicycle. Because whenever you have a bicycle of multiple speeds, the littler that gear on the front gets, the easier it is for you to pedal. Right?
How rode bicycles in years?
Huh?
How rode bicycles in a year or two?
Well, when do you think last time I rode one was?
I don't know. You might still ride them.
Yeah, I haven't ridden a bicycle in a long
I think it was
time.
fun when they got 2 seats on it. That's one of those bikes. You got 2 sets of handlebars.
Yeah. Bicycle built for 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. Okay, let me go down here. Hydraulic piston is used to operate what?
Those hydraulic applied devices.
Most hydraulic applied devices. That'd be a good answer for me too. What do holding devices do?
Wait, hold on.
16. What do holding devices do?
Yeah.
No, you got that wrong.
What?
Prevent
What, 16? Prevent gear elements from turning. Which one did we get wrong?
16. What is 16?
Hydraulic piston is used to operate what?
I put servo in it.
What did they?
Yes.
Most hydraulic applied devices. If it's a hydraulic applied device, it's going to have a piston to operate it.
What do holding devices do? They prevent elements from turning?
Yeah, prevent gear elements from turning.
I got it right in there.
Yes, you did.
Yep. Somehow you did it.
What happens when fluid passes through an enlarged opening?
Decreases.
It decreases the pressure, yeah. Or does it remain constant? No, it actually decreases them. The transmission fluid pump outlet port leads to where?
I don't know. I think it's either. I don't know.
The first place that fluid goes is the torque converter, guys.
I get it right.
The first place it goes is the torque converter.
What's a song?
Transaxle is different from a transmission because a transaxle what?
Oh.
A transaxle is different from a transmission because a transaxle does what? Uses half shafts. You got half shafts coming out of there.
Oh, you got it right.
Well, hold on now. Okay, the other one uses half shaft too. So
Yeah.
like 2-piece drive shaft, they call it a half shaft.
Yeah, well, not really. Well, I will tell you this.
But it's different though, I know how.
No, I mean, you got a good point, and the reason I'm gonna say that is, most of these later model vehicles have got an aluminum chunk in the middle and half shafts going out. That's not really a
That's why
good
it's
question.
recorded.
What I would say, a better way to word that question, and I need to rewrite it, is that the transaxle has the final drive built together with the transmission.
Oh, yeah.
See what I'm saying? But on that Acura Vigor that Frank put the transmission in for me out here, I don't know if you guys knew how that thing was set up.
I got it.
To begin with, it's got a 5-cylinder engine.
Uh-huh.
Do the math on that. Okay? And then the transmission is bolted onto the back of it just like it is any other vehicle.
Yep.
But then the output shaft comes right back out the front, and it splines into a differential right here, and it's got half shafts coming out of that differential.
That's retarded.
That's crazy.
But it doesn't have a drive shaft coming out about. The output shaft comes right about past the torque converter.
That's
I've
retarded.
got that transmission over if you look at it.
Yes,
Weird,
I do.
weird looking thing.
My buddy's got an Acura TL.
Huh?
My buddy's got an Acura TL just like that.
Yeah, and it's actually built that way.
Brad,
And don't even ask me about companion cylinders on a 5-cylinder.
I was gonna say, there is none.
Yeah, actually, there probably are, but only one of them is right by itself. 5-cylinder cars, also the Audi Fox is like that, Volkswagen Quantum.
Are they any good? Every color of
They're
it.
not bad. I mean, that Acura run like a cylinder. Until my nephew was driving it. He's booking along here on Interstate 20, not far from his house, and it's going to reach for a bottle of water, cross the median on a Camaro, and hit that car at the driver's door, going 70 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Just wiped the whole side off the car. Didn't hurt him very much, really. I mean, but it
Did it hurt?
No, didn't hurt any one of them very much, but it totaled that Vigor out. And it was the same one Mr. Frank put the transmission in for. All right.
Is that on now?
Huh?
Somebody hit me.
See if she really do this. Hello. Hey,
Somebody hit my 240. I swear to
let's
God.
do it. Let's make it happen. I'm gonna do the last couple of questions on this test, and we can do it because I got everybody here that's going to be here today, and that's a good time. All right. She'll be coming in just a minute to do this evaluation.
I ain't doing it.
Well, you need to because it will help me if you do.
Is that evaluation we do every semester?
That's the evaluation you do every semester, yeah. Out of the mentioned the transaxle producer range. That one is A. What kind of transmission fluid pump uses a hub with retractable vanes that slide along the inside of the movable bore ring? That is a variable displacement vane pump. Which of these is a pressure control valve? It's going to be a spring-loaded spool valve. Number 24 is in a 1-to-4 gear ratio. It's slower than the gear it drives. That's going to be A, right? Okay, what does a planetary gear set do? Produces various output ranges of torque and speed. Okay, everybody mark how many questions that they've been. And we are